Acts, 12th chapter, Imagined. The persecution of the church continued. King Herod Agrippa I continued where Saul left off and had some Christians arrested. He then had James, John's brother, killed with the sword. King Herod's actions were encouraged by the Jews, so he then arrested Peter. He knew Peter was a very prominent leader of this new movement that was referred to as the Way, so he made special plans to use him as an example. King Herod didn't want to leave anything to chance and ensured that extra guards were assigned to Peter. There were 16 soldiers in all. Since Peter's arrest occurred during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Herod planned a public trial for after the Passover. On the night before Peter's trial, he was chained to 2 soldiers with more guards at the door when a light shined bright in Peter's cell. Then the Lord's angel appeared to wake Peter up. The angel hit Peter on his side and said, "Get up, quickly." All of a sudden, the chains holding Peter to the 2 soldiers fell off. Next, the angel instructed Peter to get dressed and put his outer cloak on as well. The angel said, "Follow me." At this point, Peter seriously thought he was having another vision like he did in Joppa. He continued following the angel. They passed the first guard and then the second guard, all the way to the iron gate at the entrance to the city. They finally progressed down one street when suddenly the angel disappeared. It was at this point that Peter realized that he was not having a vision or dreaming. He was utterly amazed and said to himself, "Now I know with everything in me that God sent the angel to deliver me from whatever evil schemes Herod and the Jewish community had in store for me." He wanted to check in with some fellow believers because he was sure they had heard about his arrest. So he went to Mary's house. Mary was Barnabas's aunt and a brave supporter of the church. Thankfully, there was a meeting among the believers going on at Mary's house when Peter arrived. Peter knocked on the door, and a servant named Rhoda answered. "Who is it?" Peter replied, "It's Peter." Though the church was under persecution, Rhoda relaxed when she heard Peter's voice and didn't hide her excitement as she ran back to the group and exclaimed, "It's Peter! He's at the door!" The problem was that in her shock and amazement, Rhoda left Peter standing outside. Now, the believers who were at Mary's house didn't pay any attention to Rhoda. They said, "Girl, you have lost your mind. You know the king is not going to release Peter." But Rhoda responded, "No, it's really him. Peter is at the door." Rhoda was so steadfast in her response that they finally thought, "Oh, it must be Peter's angel." A moment later, they heard knocking at the door. When they went to open it, there stood Peter. Why, they couldn't believe their eyes. Neither could they form the questions. What? When? How? Peter just chuckled as he motioned everyone to gather around when he entered the house. He then explained to them how the Lord sent an angel to rescue him from everything King Herod had in store for him. Before leaving Mary's house, he instructed the believers to let James, Jesus' half-brother, and other brothers and sisters know how the Lord delivered him from prison. The next morning, the prison was in a state of chaos. All the soldiers and guards were running here and there, searching high and low, trying to figure out what had happened to Peter. They tried their best to find him before King Herod got wind that his famed prisoner had escaped. They knew that the king would severely punish each one assigned to guard Peter, and they couldn't have been more right. When King Herod learned that Peter was not in the prison, he ordered a thorough search of the premises and surrounding area. He also questioned the guards who were assigned to Peter, and when he deemed their replies unsatisfactory, he commanded that they be put to death. Not long after the Lord's angel rescued Peter, King Herod left Judea and went to Caesarea. He was in conflict with Tyre and Sidon, but Tyre and Sidon desired peace because they depended on Judea for food. There was a high probability that the conflict would be resolved because Tyre and Sidon had gained an ally in Blastus, who was one of the king's closest servants. The day came for King Herod to address the people, so he donned his kingly finery. The royal robe that he wore was covered in a silver material that reflected the light and made him appear to be shining. The people were so impressed that they exclaimed, "Why, he's not a mere man. His is the voice of a god." Well, King Herod was more than happy to receive this praise, but neglected to acknowledge God. God was not pleased. His angel promptly struck the king down to his death, with worms eating him. But in spite of all the Jews did to encourage Herod to oppress the church, the message of Jesus still advanced. At this time, Saul and Barnabas were done delivering the donations to the leaders in Jerusalem and returned to Antioch. Barnabas's cousin, John Mark, also traveled with them. Amen.